Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us this really interesting astrological forecast for April 3rd, 2025 from Tarot by Heisey.
Yeah, it's quite detailed.
So our plan is to pull out the key insights, help you make sense of the day ahead. Whether you're deep into astrology or just curious, we want this to be clear, maybe spark some aha moments, but without getting too technical.
Right.
You mentioned wanting knowledge fast and, well, thoroughly. So that's the mission. Let's just dive right in.
Okay, so the morning. The forecast paints this picture of potential emotional tension, maybe feeling a bit isolated or having some awkward social interaction.
Where's that coming from?
It looks like it's tied to the Gemini moon aspecting both Saturn and Venus. So you've got the Gemini moon, buzz wanting ideas, connection.
Right, that mental energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then Saturn steps in, bringing this sense of responsibility or maybe limitation. It could feel a bit restricting.
Okay, so a tension between wanting that freedom, that connection, and feeling weighed down by obligations. And Venus.
Yeah, Venus adds another layer. It squares the moon too, suggesting a need for emotional space, for inner peace, really.
So the morning could be a balancing act, engaging, but also needing to pull back a bit. Makes sense.
Uh-huh. Then as we get towards midday, the focus kind of shifts. It's more about communication.
Okay.
But there's a catch. The Gemini moon squares Mercury. This suggests that what you say and what you actually feel might not be perfectly aligned.
Oh, so difficulty expressing true feelings, or maybe the opposite.
Could be either, yeah. Maybe finding it hard to articulate what's really going on inside, or conversely, maybe oversharing a bit. It's just a time to be, mindful of how you're communicating.
Got it. Be aware of how emotions might be coloring our words. So what about the afternoon?
Afternoon brings another shift. The moon moves into Cancer and then squares Neptune. This tends to create a more emotionally sensitive atmosphere.
Okay, foggy maybe?
Yeah, foggy is a good word. The forecast suggests people around you might be feeling more sensitive, perhaps a bit moody.
So a good time to be careful about the vibes you're absorbing.
Definitely. The advice is pretty clear. Be selective about who you spend time with. Setting some emotional boundaries might be really helpful, protecting your energy, basically.
That sounds wise, especially if things feel unpredictable. But the evening offers some relief.
Yes, thankfully. The moon enters Cancer, its home sign. The energy shifts towards nurturing, comfort, rest. The forecast really encourages prioritizing self-care in the evening. It's a good opportunity to recharge after what could be a day with some, well, emotional ups and downs.
Sounds like a very welcome shift indeed. Now, there's something else mentioned, a pretty big one. Mercury retrograde conjunct the North Node. That feels significant.
Yeah, absolutely is. This alignment is really potent. It's all about revisiting, reassessing, and ultimately realigning.
Realigning what exactly?
Your thoughts, your communication, your decisions, aligning them with your bigger life direction, your North Node path.
Okay, so even though Mercury retrograde often gets a bad rap for confusion or delays.
Right, but here it's framed as an opportunity to actually refine your understanding of where you're meant to be going.
So any communication weirdness or mental fog isn't just noise, it could be part of that refining process.
Precisely. The forecast actually mentions a potential for really imaginative, creative thinking and strong intuition during this time.
Oh, interesting.
But but it also warns against losing sight of the details. So it's about balancing that big picture thinking with, the practical stuff.
Okay, big ideas meet practical steps. What else?
You might find yourself thinking about past conversations, maybe seeing them in a new light, finding common ground you missed, that kind of thing. It really pushes you to ask, is where I'm heading really aligned with my deeper purpose?
And setbacks.
Could actually be redirections, nudges from the universe maybe, onto a path that fits you better.
Like a cosmic course correction. So it's not just navel gazing about the past, it's using those reflections to move forward more clearly.
Exactly that. Old beliefs, old mindsets might get challenged. It encourages flexibility, being willing to rethink plans, especially long-term ones.
And watch out for messages.
Yes. Keep an eye out. Past situations, even people from the past, might resurface with, crucial insights. And don't dismiss the small stuff. Seemingly minor chats, signs, dreams, odd coincidences, they could hold significant messages about your path right now.
Wow. Okay, so April 3rd, 2025. Sounds like a day to really navigate those emotional waves, be mindful with communication, but also stay super aware of the bigger picture and how the past might be trying to guide us.
That sums it up nicely. Be present with the day's fluctuations, but keep that wider lens focused on your long-term direction and the lessons coming through.
This has definitely given us a lot to chew on. And for you, our listener, maybe reflect on this. Which past conversation or maybe a thought that keeps nagging at you, could it hold a clue about your current path? What tiny adjustment might bring things more into alignment? Something to ponder throughout your day. Thank you so much for sharing your sources and joining us for this deep dive.